Morning, besties. Today's the day. Find little presents for my kids. This is actually just a toy present for, I think it's the Cocomelon characters. And today's just a regular old vlog. I was going to ramble a little bit about something. I have two ideas in my mind that are not exactly writing related. So, and I was just like, I wanted to talk these out because I'm just like, I'm gonna let this energy out in the world because I have too many projects and I'm not gonna take any new projects, but I really want to. All right, so I have two ideas. My first idea is called Fantasy, right? It is like fantasy football, but for fantasy writers, right? So this would happen during Write-a-thon, and people would draft characters from established fictions or new fictions, and they would draft writers to their teams, right? So like, imagine if you could pick like, you pick a, you do a fantasy football league, you do a draft, and then like every day that they post a chapter is a day that you like, okay, well this character had a good arc, so they get a +1, and this character had a bad arc, so they had a -1, or this character didn't show up, so they have a 0, right? And so like you're making an adventuring party. Yeah. And like if you play fantasy football, you understand what I mean. Like there's a system, but like then people would actually have to read the books, and people would be like rooting for the characters outside of it, and that would make things really weird. They're trying to drag me into a war in Mercer Bank, and I'm just like, in order for the war to be fair, then it has to be points based, and everybody can get 1 point per day that they reach their goals, right? Because they're trying to do it, right? And the other thing is like, I don't fight fair wars. So basically, like if an author drops a chapter, they would have a point that day. So I'm thinking like one author and let's say 4 to 6 characters in their party. That would be the idea. So we do it during Write-a-thon. We'd pick brand new fictions with brand new authors, or we'd pick fictions with established authors, but we couldn't tell them in advance. So we're talking about them. I don't know. So this would require people to actually read the thing to see like whether they get a plus or a minus, and then someone had to pick a judgment and then like roll the dice. But that many characters, because like in the league they have like eight teams. That is a lot of fictions. That's a lot of fictions to choose from. I'm not gonna be able to keep up with that. No. But fantasy could be a thing during Write-a-thon if I had a team of volunteers. And if I'm gonna do one fantasy, I should open it up for like 2 groups. But if you want to volunteer for something like that, something silly, they will get people's books read. That is a thing. They would have to be posting on Novelizing or Royal Road. This might be a novelizing thing. Huh. Oh, we'll see. Novelizing is right now, it's like you can become a reader, but you have to ask for permission to become an author. Yeah. My friend is writing a divorced VTuber fiction, and it is amazing. And I cannot wait to read more of it. All right, so the other thing that's on my mind is awards. So in case you're not aware, the Stabbies was an award that was in our space, and the Inkies are an award that's in our space. But besides like going up to like the Hugos, which has its own problems, or something else, like there's not really a progression fantasy niche and awards, and I'm trying to do that. So we did the Inkies in we did it in 25, but for 24. I'm going to open up the nominations during the Immersive Ink convention for 2025 stuff. And then so the Immersive Ink it's just voted on by all the members of Immersive Ink, the Discord. You have to be a member for more than a week to vote. Although we can nominate stuff that's outside of it. The idea is to highlight people that are doing really well in there. We started off with voting on all the genres we were going to do. We have a worst fiction for Roller Road. We have like fantasy, trad. We have indie, and I wanted to make it inclusive. So we had we had like 35 genres, 35 categories. We didn't have a lot of people vote for some of the categories, and in some categories we didn't have anyone nominated. So I'm going to clear. So like I'm running the show. I'm going to have some volunteers help me this year, but I want to clean up the genres, clean up the different awards, and just make sure that I really thought about this, because like I see a lot of people write grimdark. There is a grimdark fantasy bake-off, basically. So the way that immersive inkies are going to work is that it's just going to be a strict like nomination process is going to be any Inky awardee from 2024 will be able to nominate somebody. And the reason that I'm saying this right now is so that I will hold myself accountable to it. And then basically anyone except for a mod or moderator in Immersive Ink will be able to nominate somebody with a reason, right? So like the thing that the problem I had was that people were nominating fictions or nominating books or works of art without like giving a reason. So I'm like, okay, here's the form. You have to say what the thing is, what category you're nominating for, and then why you're nominating for, right? Because I'm not going to go through and read everything. I'm going to read some of them, like some of the great ones, like Transliterated, who won an Inky, but like I can't go through and I'd have to go back and like recommend it. So like if I keep here's the thing, I want to keep myself as a neutral party. I want to run it, and I want it to not be like I'm running this so that I can get my own clout. I want to run this so that it's like neutral, because there is a publisher. There are two big publishers on Immersive Ink that are there all the time, but I want it to be like independent, even though it's run through the Discord server. I want to run it independently with volunteers, so that it's like, okay, this is a neutral ground. These are the rules about mods. There was like 5 categories that were just for the moderators to nominate whatever they wanted. I called it the nepotism categories, because like if I didn't do that, then they would be like, how come I can't nominate my own book? I'm just like, because you have a unequal power, right? So like the reason that I was like hesitant to like just like, hey, put Fiddle Soup in every category for whatever, is because he owns the server, right? So like there's a power imbalance there. Like if I nominated myself, there's a power imbalance. Did I name one of the categories the Ink, the Weevee? Yes. Because if I'm gonna run a freaking award show, I'm going to name one after myself. The Weevee is the World Building Award. It went to Blue. I forgot their work, but they won. And so that's the thing. I want it to be like, as much as I want it to be a function of the Discord server, but I also want it to be neutral to me, right? So like you can nominate whatever you want within a category, so long as it's like it meets the category requirements. But I also don't want it to be like, okay, well, I'm only not going to nominate deck builders because they're going to win, because that's what Weaver likes. Like I would love to be like every category to be like, why is there a fantasy deck builder and a romance deck? Like I would love to have that problem. Please give me that problem. I'm not gonna have that problem. Maybe we'll have a deck builder category. The point being, I wanted to include everything, which means 35 categories, which also means like we have to have at least 2 nominees per category, which means 70 fictions or 70 artists, or depending on the category. I can't read 70 fictions and review it. individually. So that is a way. And I'm also thinking about the structure that they had for the self-pub bake-off, right? So I wasn't a finalist. I didn't make it past the first round. So my first book, The Badger Company, was in the science fiction self-pub bake-off, I think in 2023. Someone reached out to me for a blurb from there recently. Need to get back to them. But so here's how the self-pub bake-offs work, is that they get a certain amount of fictions, right? And then the fictions get divvied up by team, and the team has to read like the first 25 to 40%, and they review the thing on their blog, right? So, right, again, it's like the point of this is not to increase the view count on someone's blog. It is to recognize brilliant writing, or like artwork or great narration. And that's the thing. I'm trying to like, okay, like I'm trying to build my personal brand. I would love it if I had more YouTube subscribers, but it is not absolutely essential that I have more YouTube subscribers, right? I'm going to post Immersive Ink stuff here because this is the thing I have access to, right? But it's not like that's what I was saying. Because I don't have an Immersive Ink YouTube account because I can't. I mean, I could, I guess. That's all of the can of worms. This is the fine line between self-promotion and like promoting somebody else's work, where you're like, okay, does somebody have the clout to shout this out? Right? I will shout out someone's work all day, but then in order for somebody to get that recommendation, they have to follow me, which means that they have to like my stuff, which means that I'm trying to get them to read my stuff. And later on I can shout them out so they can read your stuff. I don't know. But like then they say, I'll just make it available, right? Which is what I'm trying to get with here. So so that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that after or during Immersive Ink Con, I will see about putting together teams for like an indie progression fantasy self-pub bake-off. I have to cap it though. So this is the thing, like, because I would need people to sign up in advance to guarantee me that they would review this book, or at least read 25% of a book, right? And then I have to have like a bunch of rules to stop bad actors from like coming in and just like dominating it. Because the self-pub bake-offs that the self-pub fantasy bake-off and the self-pub science fiction bake-off, they have like a release date when they release like, okay, this is when you can submit, because there are more than 500 people that want to submit their fiction for this bake-off, right? So they have to limit it, because like within the first day, like because the bake-offs have grown so big, they have to limit it. Yeah, so that's the thing. So if you are a writer with a blog, author tuber, booktuber that wants to review books either solo or as part of a team from between like July and December, then drop a comment and we can talk. Because what I would like to do is see if I have enough interest in doing an indie self-pub bake-off focused on progression fantasy. And I don't know what I would call it. Prog fantasy. Because there's a fantasy self-pub bake-off. So progression fantasy would just be like a niche among that. But that is kind of our niche. A lit RPG prog fantasy, a lit RPG indie bake-off. Maybe. I don't know. In the comments, that's what I'm looking at. So, lit RPG, progression fantasy, cultivation. Progression fantasy covers all of those bases, but there's also a fantasy indie bake-off. So I'm looking for volunteers. If I can get this off the ground, then I would need at least 6 volunteer teams to do reviews. But we'll see. Because I cannot do this alone. And my brain is like, I need to get this idea out into the world. But then again, how is Weaver doing? Weaver's doing fine. Planning my summer. Planning the kids' summer. It is May. I have been writing Bodega Cat. I kind of have an idea where it's going for volume 2. I think it's going to be 3 books. I was thinking 4 books, but I think that it's going to be 3. And we'll see if the juice is worth the squeeze there. I'm like, I kind of got stuck in this little chapter with this secret cat cabal. And I'm like, okay, well, if he's not running dungeons, then what's he doing? Okay, all right. That's all I got. Food truck is chugging along. I really want to finish something. Right. And I need to do my edits for Caravan. Yeah. That's all I got, besties. So if you like my idea, drop a thing. You don't have to have a big blog, but you do have to have a blog, and you do have to commit to reviewing like 6 books. Based off of that, I will either thumbs up or thumbs down this project after Immersive InkCon, which is virtual, and June 20th and 21st. I need a sign-up page. There's not a sign-up page. Huh. Guess I'll make that. All right. But that's it. Besties, take good care of yourself. Take care of your family. And I will see you on the flip.